led by our two speakers, Theo and Eva. Then there will be a Q&A session to our guest speakers. After the Q&A session, we will stop the recording and for a few seconds. And this is when we'll say goodbye to Eva. Theo will kick off his presentation of Ethermind, which is our pitching part of the event. And we will record that session as well. So with that, over to Kirill.
Hi everyone, thank you for making it on this presentation today. I'm gonna just briefly say a few things about our club operations in London. Me and Galina co-run the London chapter of Your Angels Club. The chapter was founded in 2020 on the 3rd of March, a very Bulgarian day. We're actually the first major angel network in the world to have an off-spin office somewhere outside the main country. What we do here in London, we connect people in the UK who are keen to support and invest in the Bulgarian ecosystem, as well as founders like Theodore, who have some operations, are based in the UK, are having some great business which is located in the UK, but have their Bulgarian DNA. As you guys all know, one of, I think, probably the most successful Bulgarian company, which is Payhawk, is one of those companies who has their operations and roots in the UK, although they're deeply with their Bulgarian DNA and most of their R&D is based in Bulgaria. They started their Western expansion from the UK. So we know that this is an approach that works because having headquarters in the UK allows Bulgarian founders to keep their lean approach, their Bulgarian approach of doing a lot with nothing, but also give them the credibility and the opportunity to scale and expand quickly in markets which, for one reason or another, not prefer, but maybe take a liking for companies which are in the US or in the UK, because as we know, these are the two largest tech markets in the world right now. Probably China and India compete, but that's a different story. So once again, thank you for coming today, and I'll give the floor to Galina to moderate the event now.
Thank you very much, Kirill. I want to kick off. We have a few people still joining. Hopefully, we'll have more. But I want to kick off by introducing our two esteemed guest speakers. I'm very proud to have them join this event. We'll start with the lady Eva Gumnishka. Is the founder of Humans in the Loop, a social enterprise which provides data labeling services and human in the loop pipelines for the AI industry. In addition, Eva is a board member of For Humanity, a non-profit organization which focuses on audit standards for AI systems, and part of the founding team of the upcoming International Olympiad in Artificial Intelligence. Exciting. Theodore Theo is the founder of Ethermind. You'll hear more about Ethermind today. It creates AI personas in various areas of expertise, powered by the best-in-class large language models, proprietary data science, and knowledge that is not publicly available. Ethermind leverages a vast network of human experts to improve the product continuously. Theo is also co-founder of CourseDot, which provides bespoke training solutions globally with a pool of 4,400 plus trainers. Customers include multinational corporations, intelligence, and government agencies. Theo is a graduate of the Singularity University's program at NASA Ames, focusing on AI, exponential technologies, and the transformation of business and society. With that, we will kick off our discussion, and I'll pretty much hand over the floor to Eva and Theo. I wanted to very quickly mention, to remind people that artificial intelligence started actually around 1950s, and that is simply something, an area that focuses to mimic human intelligence. And we are yet to discover how successful machines will be to reach that task, mimic ourselves. And there are different models that try to obtain that or execute on that task. And first question for Theo to kick off with the lots of different, vast, very quickly paced development in artificial intelligence. Let's start maybe for our members to quickly describe a few main models and what they mean, and then we'll continue about talking about the latest developments.
Sure. Thank you very much for the nice intro, Galina. Hello, everybody. So yeah, as Galina said, AI is changing everything. What we see and what I hear day in, day out from our customers and talking to everybody is that pretty much any software company right now is becoming an AI company. And while AI has had its wins and losses over the past, there's been several so-called AI winters. It's been all the hype since the early 2000s, since really 2007 or 8, when a number of models which Geoffrey Hinton, Professor Geoffrey Hinton, who's very famous, actually invented some of those and worked on those, became famous with the ImageNet, with image recognition, and so on. That's when really the hype started to pick up, early 2010s. And what we see now is the so-called transformer architecture. So that's quite a simplistic architecture. You can Google it. It's called a transformer. It was invented in Google actually in 2017. And all the modern names you hear, such as GPT-4, such as Bard, such as Llama 2, Grok, and all the others, I'm sure I'm forgetting a number of them, actually follow the same architecture. Gane, is it okay if I share a couple of slides? Actually,
please do.
Yeah, what I did is I just actually gathered a couple of slides for a quick presentation, as as I did an event presentation yesterday. Can you see my screen? Can you see the full screen?
Yep. Yes.
All right. So the most important slide is this one, really. It is Moore's law. Everyone, I guess, from of you has seen this slide. And what it shows is the exponential growth of anything which is silicon-based. And as what we can see in this slide is several things. First of all, Moore's law has been at work even before it was coined. It was coined by Gordon Moore, one of the Intel co-founders in the 1960s. And even before it was coined, the price performance of computing was doubling every X amount of time, even during World War I, World War II, etc., etc. And if you look to the top right, you'll see that by 2023, we do what? We match the power of a single human brain. And how can we measure that? Well, we can measure that with the standard Turing test. So the standard Turing test is really you're chatting to something which is in the next room, that it's a chat interface. You're chatting to something, it is in the next room, and if you don't know whether it is a human or something else, then it has passed the Turing test. So last year, on time, ChatGPT was announced, and it's smarter than a lot of people I know. On a lot of topics, including myself on a number of topics. I'm no expert in a lot of things. So this slide is something which I got from the guys. Essentially, that was the main slide at Singularity University. Ray Kurzweil's whole work is based around this. Ray is the most well-known futurist. And it leads to a lot of interesting places. But where we are now is that there are a lot of human skills where we are very close with human performance, or outperforming humans really for a lot of the skills. So out of the official GPT-4 paper, which was released by OpenAI early in March, we see that GPT-4 and subsequent models mainly to the automation of certain jobs. It's doing much better than humans in a lot of exams, so the bar exam, SAT, and so on. And that's the transformer architecture. The latest update, which we have since less than 2 days ago, since 47 hours ago, is OpenAI released the currently most powerful publicly available models. So it used to be that GPT-4 was among the most powerful models, right up there with, let's say, Claude from another company called Anthropic. What the main updates are, and I've tried to really put them in a couple of sentences here in this slide, is we have a way larger context. So instead of 8,000 tokens in the context, we have up to 128,000 tokens, which, to give you an idea, that's 300 pages of text. Way more than enough to have a proper conversation. This is the context which the model will hold for a single conversation. This new model is called GPT-4 Turbo. It's actually cheaper and faster than the standard GPT-4 and not stable. By the way, when we were coming into this event, we actually tried to change Ethermind's model onto GPT-4, and they all had a major outage. So I even have a screenshot of that. That was an hour ago. And there's new APIs. There is a new model which does text to speech. And then the other thing is those models are becoming multimodal. So what we have with the transformer architecture, which is initially was just a next word prediction machine, is we use the same architecture to look at pictures and to listen to sound. So GPT-4 Vision right now, it's a multimodal model. It can actually look at pictures, recognize pictures, and think about them and comment on them. So what we've seen in the past 40 plus hours is people coding like things like machines which give you recipes when they look at your fridge, like sports commenters. Something is watching, an AI is watching the football game, and it can comment on like a soccer ball. And we'll see a lot of innovation here. So the future really is going to be copilots everywhere. That's where we're headed. We'll have copilots for pretty much any task which can be defined in a corporate environment. And we'll probably have software agents, so AI agents managing those copilots. And then eventually we'll get to the point, probably within the next year, to not having to do the prompting correctly. I know all of us are trying to catch those specific prompts in ChatGPT or whatever else we're using, you know, the super prompts giving us the best results. There's a number of scientific papers actually being released constantly on self-improvement on and algorithms for self-generating prompts actually. So, but the judgment will be with the humans for quite a while. So sorry it took that long, but I really thought that that's quite important. I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing my screen right now.
Very, very useful and a great introduction. And Eva, any comments on your side from on what Theo said so far?
Yeah, no, it's a great way to kick us off for the conversation. And thanks, Theo, for giving this overview of kind of where we are at right now with regards to the current progress generative AI. I come from a context where I'm very interested in responsible AI, and I've been engaging with the responsible AI community for quite a while. So my point of view is very critical with regards to everything that's been raised as issues around generative AI and the hype around AI systems in general right now. And also the different tendencies towards responsible versus responsible AI and versus the existential risks and kind of regulating AI and discussing the singularity as Theo has presented, you know, kind of that big vision of reaching something that people call AGI, artificial general intelligence, and whether that's even going to be possible and what it means, and the ideology behind building such systems. And I come from also a background where I've been working with different AI companies for the past 6 years through our data labeling services. So I've been able to witness a lot of successful applications of machine learning and primarily supervised machine learning in very specific domains. So I'm very interested in seeing how the current progress in transformer architecture will also lead to new businesses being created for very specific and customized purposes, and whether it's even going to be possible for businesses to thrive around the generative AI space, or whether a couple of a small number of players are going to end up controlling the entire industry, as it looks like it's going to be happening now. So yeah, a lot of interesting points that we can discuss. But primarily, I think it's going to be important to touch upon the current hype and whether it's actually substantiated. How, why is the current boom different from previous booms in AI, and whether it's worthwhile for the members of the CEO Angels Network to be investing in such companies, or whether they should be a little bit more skeptical about the current overhyped topics around generative AI.
Thank you, Eva. And you've touched on a lot of questions that are absolutely critical for investors, and I guess equally critical for the founders. I would like to perhaps continue with the train of thought around founders, and as Eva, you mentioned, and Theo, you mentioned the different business models, and it'll be interesting in terms of the customized purposes and customized models, and how these different ways of applying artificial intelligence and the different models that are emerging, how they can be applied by founders. And also touching upon my understanding, and this full disclaimer, I'm not a tech expert. My understanding is with the open source that models that are being released, actually the idea is to democratize production of and make it much cheaper models, so that founders and people can use it in their daily lives much more easily. So I would love to hear your views on that as well.
Yeah, I would say just on the open source, for me, it's actually very interesting because Meta has, the biggest kind of contribution here with their open source model. And for me, it was a good strategic decision on their side because it was seeming that with their focus on the metaverse, they kind of completely got sidetracked and were missing out on the AI boom. So I think by releasing Llama, I think they definitely positioned themselves securely in the space, but it's going to be very interesting to see how they also make use of generative AI right now, because it seems that they're going into a direction where they're releasing chatbots with different types of personalities of celebrities that you can chat with. And that's not really being very appealing to their users. So it's quite interesting to see that within the AI industry, there's the open source kind of camp of people who are defending open source models. And Andrew Ng is, for example, a big defender of that. And he's really in favor of promoting open source, and he's actually one of the people who are against regulating the AI industry, because his thought is that it's just going to create more it's going to concentrate more power in the hands of few companies like OpenAI, DeepMind, and so on. So yeah, it's a very interesting situation, I think, where a lot of companies are trying to position themselves and to have an important stake, either through their own proprietary APIs or by releasing open source models. But there is also a big risk in releasing models just out there. There was this European company, I can't remember their name, who just released. Yep. So I think a lot of people were actually complaining that their model was released without any safeguards whatsoever. And it's actually a torrent file. So, it's just, out there without any protection for the users. So there's also a lot of risks that need to be considered.
Can I jump in for a second? Yeah, so thanks you for this. Actually, what we see is that we actually live in a world where we might end up with a regulatory capture by a couple of very big companies, which actually own the majority of the intelligence in the world. So what we see is that there is, on the basic hardware level, there is a shortage on the cards, and the maker is one, it's NVIDIA, and the machines are NVIDIA A100 and H100s. And to give you an idea, Llama, the first one, the first model released by Meta, kind of leaked, but it was really in February. It was trained on 2048 NVIDIA A100 cards. What we had in Bulgaria was around 4 at that time. So that's the sad reality of it. So we might end up in regulatory capture, and those laws and executive acts. So President Biden last week, he announced an executive act which is 110 pages long, and it's quite a substantial document. It kind of looks like a mishmash of regulators trying to regulate tools rather than trying to regulate use cases. Meaning, look, all of us can do damage. All of us drive cars and have kitchen knives. Do we do any damage? No, not really. I mean, you may dump your car into someone else's car, but that's it. There's no intention there. So what's happening now is they're trying to really regulate the means rather than the malicious use, which is probably regular. Same goes for the European Union Act, where there's a licensing model, which basically means at some point that you have to or models you're working with or fine-tuning to some employees, and then the government employees will have to decide whether this thing is a double use or not. So we're living in a very much changing times. There's a lot of lawsuits which are going on. So Midjourney is being sued for hundreds of millions, and we'll see where it goes. On the topic of running your own intelligence on open source, there is a project called Ollama. You can check it out, and you can actually run, let's say, Llama 2, one of the small models, or Mistral on your MacBooks. Unfortunately, I don't have a MacBook. I have a ThinkPad, so I think I'll have to buy a MacBook just for this one. And this was science fiction in the beginning of the year, powered not the least by the inventions of a Bulgarian guy called Georgi Gerganov, who played with the quantization of the models. Yes, very smart guy. He got one of the first grants from Andreessen Horowitz to work on his startup. I think where we're going, we're following very closely to what we studied in Singularity University and what guys like Peter Diamandis and Ray Kurzweil and others told us. Where we're going is we'll see some point of time, very, very close in time, we'll see a convergence of all the technologies. So we'll see a convergence of what we call generative AI with all types of AI, with VR, with audio, and with everything. And, my prediction, Hollywood is dead. I wouldn't invest in movie making companies. Actors gone. I mean, they can license their faces and voices, but really no point in them until they train the models on top of them. And the gaming industry will be growing like crazy because we'll be able to generate characters which really know you. And those characters, they can be used for all kinds of purposes, good and bad. And think of social media. Is social media good or bad? We'll see also a regulation in social media because of the generative AI. I can bet you on whatever everyone is drinking that social media will have to be paid very, very soon. Small amounts, but just not to enable hundreds of thousands of bots to flood things. So change really is going to be the only constant for the rest of our lives.
So in the end, Elon Musk seems to have been right and to have been a pioneer in, discussing the subscriptions for X.
Oh, absolutely.
Maybe we're going to see everyone doing that in the end. But yeah, it's actually a very interesting topic, the AI regulation space, because a lot of regulators just don't have enough knowledge and are unable to just keep up with the pace of the current developments. The European AI Act was actually started before this current generative AI boom. It's been in the works for several years now. So, once ChatGPT came up, they realized that what they had as a draft was not able to address or to cover any of these new applications, because the focus of the AI Act is more on the different levels of risk of the systems. So they would say, if your system is a high-risk system, then we want to regulate you. If it's not a high-risk system, then it's fine, and we don't have to regulate any of these tools. So, for example, they focus a lot on AI systems for healthcare, for education, maybe for access to work, different types of basic rights. But in the end, when it comes to a very generic tool like ChatGPT, which can be used for any of these things, they just realize that they don't have any provisions that covered such general use systems. So it's going to be interesting to see how these regulations evolve, because they're kind of going after a moving target. And it's very difficult for regulators who need a lot of time and a lot of deliberations and so on to just keep up with the current pace. And that's why maybe, just an executive act by, the president of the US it's something that's a lot more efficient and quick to compile, instead of, the long process of lawmaking in the European Union, for example. But yeah, it's a very interesting topic, though, what you just mentioned about kind of that singularity and all of these technologies converging. I've been following this lady called Timney Gebru from the Distributed AI Research Center. She actually was part of the team that was exploring transformer models and their possible negative consequences before they were released to the public. She wrote this paper called Stochastic Parrots, where she argued that, these systems are essentially word calculators, and they spill out words, but they don't necessarily understand the meaning behind these words that they're spilling out. It's just, a combinatorial system that spits out the most likely response. And you can put a filter on top of it that's based on reinforcement learning with human feedback, so that, it's getting closer to a function of what humans find desirable or funny or appealing. But still behind that, you have, this question of, are these systems truly intelligent, or are they just reproducing, the probabilities of words coming together into a sentence and different sentences forming a paragraph? And do they have an idea of or a model of reality as we humans understand it? They also highlighted a lot of other risks. For example, the fact that a lot of AI systems are being used, are using scraped data from the internet, and essentially there's no consideration whatsoever of on copyright. And there's a lot of very powerful players in the industry, especially investors, such as Andreessen Horowitz, who are trying to claim that copyright doesn't matter in AI, just because otherwise it would really hurt their existing investments. So the question of copyright is also crucial. Estelle mentioned, the current lawsuits against AI companies, and the fact that, these companies are aware and are trying to provide some kind of a cushion. I think Adobe was the first company that's providing copyright protection in case a designer is using their systems and someone claims that they have infringed their copyright. Adobe can basically cover the legal expenses of that user and to defend them in court. So I think a lot of other companies are following suit. OpenAI just announced that it's going to be doing the same thing and to protect its users against copyright claims. But that, does not mean that these models weren't actually trained on scraped data from online sources, from a variety of different, and we actually don't know. A lot of the training data of these models is just unknown. OpenAI has not disclosed what types of sources it has been using for the training of its systems. It's a very opaque process that they do not reveal, of course, because it's kind of their competitive advantage. And, kind of that access to fresh data and high quality data and large scale data is going to be a moat that's going to be very important to them and to anyone else working in the space. But the thing is that now they're essentially running out of data, and they've scraped the whole internet, and there is no more quality data left for them to keep training their models. So now, the question is, how do we use the proprietary personal data of companies, of people? How do we generate new data? And that would be an interesting challenge as well, in terms of creating new for more custom applications.
Can I jump on a couple of points here? Is it okay, Galina? Okay.
Yes, please do.
Yeah, that the moat thing is real. I really think that Elon Musk, one of his main drives to buy Twitter X right now was actually getting the data and being able to use it for his own and his investors' purposes. That, by the way, they released a model called Grok. They have their own LLM. Grok was released, I think, this Monday. One of the smaller models, but still outperforming Llama 2 in several important aspects. What I see, I think we're very close, unless something changes, very close to the end of the internet as we know it, the end of the open internet, access to everything. So Quora, Reddit, and others are changing their policies as we speak, and they've already done so. And yeah, that's the reality. We've never had such a thing. We've had Google crawling things, but generally it brought stuff and more revenue towards people's websites and products rather than taking it away, which is the current thing. What we'll see is I really think that what we're seeing with LLMs, and especially with multimodal LLMs, being able to configure and write software on the fly, is we'll see initially more dynamic sites. So imagine a website, you're entering a website, the website has your profile, and it's just generating the whole website for yourself. It's your own personal experience. And afterwards, I believe we'll see the dismay of the App Store, because why do you need the app? You need the app to achieve something. Well, you can use an intelligent agent, kind of your buddy, your executive assistant, to achieve the thing. So you don't really care about the app unless you really love to click the buttons. But really, I think that OpenAI right now and others will probably see an open source market built on top of Llama 3, I guess, because it should be released sometime next year. We'll be going after the apps. Microsoft is also giving a cover for if someone tries to sue you. Microsoft also gives you a cover. They invested a lot of money into OpenAI, and they have separate instances of actually the GPT-4 models running on Azure, so you can get those. They also have some enterprise functionality, which is, by the way, very hard to get. We've been talking to Microsoft with like a whole map of decision makers, like at least 10 people very senior in the US, and it's not easy to get the enterprise functionality. But the proprietary data is the key until we get to the point that we move into the physical world, because that's where all the data lies. But right now it's all about the proprietary data. What I see with consultants with whom we work is many of, let's say, large manufacturers go for the other way. So they don't trust the OpenAI, they don't trust sending their data through some API to, like, the real proprietary data to some cloud provider. And it doesn't even matter that there's terms of service in the cloud provider promises that they won't use data towards training their own models. And a lot of companies are just training their own versions of Llama 2, and it does a pretty good job. So my guess is by next year, we'll probably have some kind of an assistant running on our phones. It'll be an app and run locally, and it will be at least as powerful as GPT-4 is right now.
Yeah, so maybe before we wrap up for questions, I wanted to, just that vision of having our own personal assistant, I think is fascinating, and it does come with a lot of ethical considerations with regards to, for example, the emotional connection with these assistants and the anthropomorphization that we humans just naturally do, and we assign, these systems a personality, like in the movie Her, but also questions around personal decision making, right? So who bears the responsibility if the assistant tells you to do something or recommends something and then you do it? Can you blame the assistant, or was it your decision in the end? Questions around customization and personalization. I know that a lot of people in education are actually concerned about these personalized, let's say, AI tutors, because if the AI tutors decides that this child is better at math, or this child needs a particular learning style, and adapts all of the learning content, does that make learning equitable for everyone, or can it lead to a different, let's say, outcome for students based on what the AI thinks about their learning styles and their abilities and their needs? So it's quite an interesting direction that we're heading towards. And there's a lot of people that are trying to raise more awareness about the current perils in AI. Because I do think that it's very important for us to be grounded in whatever is being launched right now. I know that a lot of people are kind of thinking about the far future and, transhumanist ideas of what could become, humanity, and the impact of these small actions today, the exponential impact that they can have in the future. So a lot of people are talking about alignment with human values and how we can ensure, long-term benefits for humanity, but they are forgetting about the real risks and perils of these systems just today as they are being applied across the world. So it's very important to just, be very grounded in these real consequences that these systems have today.
I love that, and I love the debate that actually occurred, and the thoughts that it provoked, and it made me think of we humans, we have a lot of biases, subconscious, conscious or subconscious, and many actually subconscious, and everything that AI is bringing now is potentially AI biases. And we will need to learn to deal not with only our own human biases, but also we need to learn how to deal with the AI biases, is what I got out from our last discussion point. And it's a fascinating point, but we're getting too close to our time for discussion, and some people actually need to drop off. So we do need to give people the opportunity to ask questions. So now we open up the floor for Q&A to Eva and Teo. Please, for good order, raise your hand and I'll announce who will speak next. And I'm sure that there are lots of questions, maybe way more than time to discuss. I'll give one more chance people to ask questions, because I must have hundreds. Kirill.
So it took me some time to find my hand. I want to ask this question from a perspective of a person who is not technically as educated as Eva and Teo. So as investors, we obviously are in a position to observe this technical revolution, if you may call it, which AI brings about. Then we saw this change probably in just last year, where every single startup now claims to have an AI technology. Whether they actually have or no is another question. And as investors, I would like to hear both of your perspectives. When we're evaluating companies, how do we actually discern whether the company genuinely uses AI, and should be investing in companies at all who do not have any AI in them? That's probably a very broad question, but I want to hear your perspectives to tell us as investors how to judge our investments in the obviously under the scope of AI technology. We're speaking about tech companies, obviously, not about.
Can I go first? Right. So historically, what we've had as humans is just three types of leverage. We've had human labor, so other people working for us. We've had capital, and we've had software since the last, let's say, 30 years. So the cost of things becomes incrementally slow, and they're very easy to replicate. What we have with AI is quickly, and Marc Andreessen, because we've been talking about him several times. Marc Andreessen said software is eating the world. But what's happening right now is AI is eating software. That's the reality of it. So it's just impossible for any company which has any kind of a, let's say, software or hardware / connected product to exist without having the AI functionality. Actually, I had somewhere in my slides. I have some friends who are running a company which has over 100 million of revenue, and it's an agricultural company. They just signed an agreement to import agricultural drones. 20-ton plus machines. They're not small drones you buy from the store. They cost millions and so on. And those machines are autonomous. And really, he got a question. So one of the owners of this company got a question: what are we going to do with the tractor drivers? And the answer was, well, they're going to have to look after the robots. They're going to have to requalify and look after the robots. So the reality is there is no question in my head that any company, whereas it was any company is a software company, now any company has to be an AI company. Well, the reality is many companies, at least in the space I know, I think I know quite a lot of the players in the learning and development and upskilling industry. What I see when I go to conferences, let's say in London, is a lot of companies that are trying to kind of sprinkle AI on top of their products. What we have is a game changer in many industries. So we'll have to adapt and rethink a lot of our business models from scratch and really adapt to it. I'm not saying AI will make all of us jobless. I'm not saying it's going to be universal basic income and some kind of dystopia, but we'll have to adapt, because the other reality is, whether we regulate or the US regulates, there are going to be places where smart people exist, and those places develop models, and they won't be regulated. So in order to stay competitive, we need to be able to use whatever the best tools are available right now. Think of AI just as the fourth lever on top of software. We have a fourth lever called AI, and we need to have the best tools, because otherwise we'll be racing a horse while at the same time somebody's building the SpaceX rocket and going to Mars. So that's going to be the difference between us.
Yeah, just to add here, I think because of the hype, too many companies are now claiming that they're AI companies and are sprinkling AI whenever whenever it's convenient for them, but it's not necessarily bringing any user value. For example, I was very excited about Notion, the kind of like wiki hosting page. When they released Notion AI, they were kind of one of the first companies that were releasing AI functionalities and smart assistants in their interface, and in the end it was kind of useless, and I was very disappointed. Same thing with Zoom. We have the AI companion button down here, but I'm not sure whether people are actually using these. So a lot of companies are now racing to just like add AI functionalities in their interfaces, but they're not thinking deeply about the user needs that they're addressing and the value that they're bringing to the actual users. So it ends up being very superfluous. It ends up being useless. So I think we're gonna see actually some kind of like a pull out from, you know, just AI everything, and as companies start to explore where can we bring the biggest value with these new technologies, because it's not going to be everything. And yeah, it's going to be most likely for very specific use cases where you have, you know, specific proprietary data, which can really, yeah, position you in a much better place than anyone else out there. So it's going to be a question of really, yeah, proprietary data. I think it's going to be the key to building successful businesses with generative AI.
And I think that is the perfect point to transition to our pitching session, where Theo and his Ethermind company, which uses proprietary data science and knowledge. Before that, I want to thank our speakers, Eva Gumishka and Theo Panayotov, for this fascinating discussion. Thank you very much. Eva, thank you for joining. Goodbye. Eva will leave us tonight, but we'll stay connected.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you very much. Ellie, can you please stop for a second the recording?
Yes, 1 second.
Thank you.